For more now on what's happening inside Gaza, Dr. Anas Al-Kassem is a Canadian trauma surgeon, recently returned from a trip to provide medical help in the territory. Thank you for coming and joining me in studio. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So CBC News has not been inside Gaza, but you have been. Would you describe for me what is the hospital situation like there that you were dealing with?
Well, it doesn't look like any hospital in Canada, unfortunately. The minute you reach the hospital, we were working in two hospitals in Khan Yunis, that's south of Gaza. You find thousands of refugees taking the vicinities of the hospital as refugees. They think it's a little bit safer than being in the tents outside. Nothing is really safe in Gaza Strip, to be honest with you. But thousands of refugees wounded on the mattresses, on the floor, in the entrance, no beds, because the capacity is about 500 and there are more than 1,500 wounded in one hospital.
And you hear and see that danger all around you?
Unfortunately, you hear the sounds of the bombing, the tanks, the airstrikes, the drones on top of you almost 24 hours. But the minute you get into the hospital, that's what we came for as trauma surgeons. You feel more comfortable because we came to help our colleagues of surgeons, physicians and nurses that have been working for almost 90 days in Gaza, tirelessly day and night.
And working under such difficult circumstances as well. Something that you've said really stuck with me, and that's that you became an arbiter of between death and life. Talk to us a little bit about the devastating choices that doctors like yourself are having to make in Gaza.
That's so true. I mean, in Canada, even like in a bigger trauma center like St. Mike Hospital or the General Hospital in Hamilton, if you receive maybe 2 gunshots, that's probably the max what you're going to get in a tough day. But imagine that you receive 15 injuries at once. 50% of them, I was calculating, probably 7, 8 children at once, with all kind of injuries, head, chest, abdomen, and lower extremities. And one patient doesn't only take one surgeon. It might actually need 3 or 4 surgeons working on one body. And we're only 6 surgeons, imagine that. So we had to make very difficult decision in order to save some lives, and we had to keep some, aside because we don't have the capacity to deal with all these kind of injuries and casualties at once.
I'm sure so much of this is sticking with you, but are there any stories of people that you were able to help save, perhaps, that are kind of keeping you up? We
were lucky to have great surgeons, as I said, in this trip, 2 from Canada and 6 from U.S. One thoracic surgeon from Toronto, he was with me, and we had an 8-year-old child who, unfortunately, he was moved from northern Gaza to South Gaza, and his family told me that they rented a small house of some few houses left behind in Rafah area in South Gaza. They were hit by an airstrike. There was a shrapnel going through the upper chest, and the CAT scan showed that this is sitting in the pericardium, the membrane around the heart. So I communicated with some top surgeons that I trained with in the Syrian war from Britain, and they told me you have to go in immediately. So we made a decision that we have to go in with that thoracic surgeon. We evacuated a huge amount of blood from around the heart. We took the shrapnel out and we saved this life. Some children we were able to save, but many we could not.
You just mentioned the Syrian war, and I'm curious because I know that you've done work in other conflict zones as well. How does what you saw in Gaza compare to what you've dealt with elsewhere?
I think the 2 differences are that Gaza is a highly populated area, 2.2 million population, 10 by 40 kilometers, with ongoing bombardment, airstrikes day and night. And therefore, we have seen a lot of casualties and death in the Gaza war. Loss of children, as I said, almost 10,000 children died so far or killed because of the airstrikes. That makes it really different than the Syrian war within very short time. We're talking about 3 months. And the other thing, unfortunately, these people have been under occupation. I heard from them since 1967. So they have lack of of medical supplies. The infrastructure is not well maintained to start with. The hospitals not very advanced to start with, and now they're being hit. The hospitals are out of service. They don't have enough supplies, lack of medical staff. And the most difficult thing is that if you cannot deal with the injury, you don't have the luxury to be able to transfer this to another country or neighbor country. You have to deal with what you have in terms of the resources. That makes it quite difficult.
When you mentioned that 8-year-old who you were able to help, and I know that you're also a father of 5 children yourself, what is it like seeing the suffering that children in particular are going through?
That's one of the motivation, to be honest with you, that makes me go to war zones, because we're living very comfortable life, luxury life, and we have everything, all kind of services around us. When I go there, what really strikes me are the children who are, left behind with no food, no water, no electricity. The temperature is down to 5 degrees at night, and they're living in tents, in the plastic tents. Imagine that. So I feel that treating and saving one child at a time, it's just like a big reward for me as a surgeon coming from Canada.
Absolutely. Well, it's incredible work, what you've just gone and done, and I appreciate you coming back and telling us all about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Anas Al-Kassem joining us in studio.